Here we go.
Great.
Okay. Once you've established your expenses, and I think we talked about this is about where we left off. After establishing your expenses, you know how, you know what, I'm going to adjust this a little bit. Hang on. There we go. After establishing your expenses, you'll know how much it's going to cost you to operate your business. Take your total expenses divided by your anticipated days. Next, understand that your rental revenue is contribution to overhead until your income equals the monthly expenses. That day becomes your break-even day. All new revenue becomes gross profit or contribution to bottom line at no more expense. So once you hit that number, every dime you bring over the transom is free. You want to maximize your revenue. After sale items, as discussed earlier, many businesses' profitability lies in the items they sell after sale. And I say after sale, it's called additional sales items. There's a dozen different names for it. But we named it after sale items here because the sale is already done when you sold the rental day. And the customer is standing at the counter. Now it's up to you to maximize that revenue. The first place is to take a look at your fleet every day and use the ability to upgrade to balance your inventory. Let's say you've got 4 Nissan Leafs and you've got a couple of Chevy Volts and even a Chevy Bolt. So you might want to upgrade from the Chevy Bolt to a Leaf or from a Leaf to a Volt for only a few dollars more. And you just maximize the revenue. Now, in a B2B situation, that also means if you've got some vehicles that are sitting around not doing anything, and they're the larger vehicles, you may want to put those out at a lower price. Going the opposite way, because you want to maximize your revenue for the day, but you also want to maximize the fleet. It's already a pre-sold day, so you want to maximize what you can. Some of the things that you're going to have on the retail side eventually is supplemental liability insurance. Another one is personal accident insurance. And I'm not getting into these in any detail because you have to have 50 plus cars before the insurance companies will take you on. And when you get to the point where you want to offer this, then you and I will do a separate one, or David, and we'll do a separate thing just for the SLI and the PAI. Fuel charges. On the retail side, if you're going to have a customer taking the car out, there's 2 ways to do it. One is a refueling charge and the other is prepaid fuel. Let's start with a refueling charge. The customer returns the car with the same level. Now, your cars are going to be electric. How do you charge for refueling? Well, you have a
Recharge.
Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Recharging.
We charge it.
Very simple.
Charging fuel, a charging fee.
You don't charge a car anywhere for free, right?
Nope.
A charge for a charge.
A charge for a charge.
That's right.
I like that.
And it's not a whole lot cheaper than gasoline.
No.
So on your rental contract, you want to make sure that you have charge level out, charge level in. Or refueling. Same thing, gas charge, no difference.
Now your cars all have a charging gauge.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be able to take that level and plug it into where it says fuel charge on your software. Now, one thing that you ought to do, talking about this, is to change your nomenclature on your rental agreement to get rid of fuel charge and put a charging expense or something of that nature.
Makes sense.
Many operators are finding that they'll take the prepaid fuel or prepaid charge, which means if you push it back into the driveway because you ran out of electric, we understand, just don't scratch the bumper. But you paid for the charge and you get it. What usually happens is it'll come back with a quarter or a half, and you've made money on that because it won't cost as much to recharge it.
Random morning question. Did you guys ever used to watch Seinfeld at all?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Do you remember, Jim? There's one episode where Kramer is just running the rental. He wants to bring it back bone empty.
Just driving it.
Yeah, and so the guy's like, "Hey, here's the exit for the rental car and return." It's like, "No, we're gonna keep going.
We're gonna keep going. I got gas." Did you see the episode where they go and he and Seinfeld and the gal, I forget her name, are standing at the rental counter to pick up a car? That one too. That's hysterical.
That's a great one.
I want all those insurances because I'm going to beat the hell out of you.
Yeah.
I had an interesting weekend this weekend. We're walking through Walmart, picking up some loaves of bread and some dog food. And I went, oh, child car seats. I haven't looked at how much they cost in a long time. Linda said, well, they're a lot more money than they were when we bought them. And I said, I'm sure they are. I was bowled over. A child car seat today, it's like $150.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're heavy too. If you ever try to lug one onto an airplane and then into a rental car, they make them out of, they're like steel reinforced and everything. Yeah, they're no joke.
And that's exactly what I did. I picked it up. I said, how can this say, oh, and I thought it was hooked to the thing, but it wasn't. But the lowest price one was just a booster and that was still $89.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem. If you have a retail customer coming into your shop, they have to have a child car seat. And if they don't have it, you can't rent them the car. So what we recommend is you have at least one car seat for each size child. The infant, toddler, and a booster chair. And you can charge for that. We used to charge $5 a day. After looking at what those things cost today, I'd charge 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and that's also additional revenue. Never put a child car seat in the car. Hand it to mom and dad, let them put it in. And you know what else? They have expiration dates on them. I did not know that. So I learned a whole bunch. Toll roads. Depending on where the vehicle is, the registered owner is going to get the tickets for toll roads. So you may want to put transponders in all the cars. And put a transponder in. Let's say if you're going to put them in Houston, you want to make sure you get the one. I think Houston uses Go Pass or Easy Pass. I'm not sure which. And you want to put them in every car, even if it's out on lease, so that and then put a charge on it, a specific charge per day, because they're going to be using it, and it's going to go against your license plates. If you register, depending on how you register them, if you register them to the company, then it's not an issue. Because then the company will get the tickets and they got to pay. Remember, any extras, daily extras, you want to present them properly. We had a problem where an operator was selling personal accident insurance and he referred to it as medical insurance. And a lady rented the car, and while she had the car, she went into labor, and she went to the hospital, and they said medical insurance. She goes, "Oh yeah," handed him the rental agreement.
Oh, wow.
Oh wow is right.
That's crazy. Okay.
The long and the short of it was the attorneys came in and asked for the medical insurance 3 different times on 3 different rentals. And so it went to court, and they became the proud godparents of little Jose.
Okay.
Right. There's a whole bunch of waivers that are out there. On the retail side, an explosion of waivers, such as WDW, windshield damage waiver, TDW, tire damage waiver. A waiver is a fee so that you take the responsibility for an incident away from the customer onto the company. If you handle it properly and you charge it properly, it becomes a, how do I say it? It becomes a good revenue source. For instance, I've had, how I first heard about WDW was there was a guy in Atlanta. He was charging $6 a day for windshield damage waiver. And I asked him, I said, "You making any money on that?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "But we did $6,500 last month." Oh, okay. It's got to pay a bill somewhere along the line. Americans with Disabilities Act. Whether you're B2B or retail, you're going to have from time to time, and especially in California, the state is going to want to check and see if you're following the rules. And one of those rules is ADA, the American Disabilities Act. If you get a call from a potential renter, the ADA says it's a discrimination to tell them that you do not have vehicles. You have to provide them with a vehicle, but it doesn't have to be your vehicle. You want to make friends with local, let's see, Wheelchair Getaway, Wheelways, a number of different American Van Rental Association. These are the folks that have the vehicles. You have 72 hours to comply. So it's very simple. You go ahead and take the reservation. You've already set up the with Wheelways or whatever it is down the street. And that if you get a customer that needs, where'd that come from? There you go. If you had a customer that needed a wheel or a handicap accessible vehicle, that they would handle it for you. So that will cover you. Just point of interest, point of information. Do not turn away a customer because you don't happen to have a vehicle available. Okay.
Can you, is there any, so if you fulfill that rental by contacting another company, are there any rules about the rates that you can charge them? Do you have to charge your normal rate, or is there can you charge an adder for?
No, there is no rule.
You just can't,
because you're turning it over to somebody else.
Okay.
Okay. You're providing them with the vehicle, and they know it's not going to be cheap because they've rented before. And honestly, David, how many times have you had people ask you for handicapped accessible vehicles in all the years you were renting cars?
Probably once in 45 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
They usually go to a handicap accessible company.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay.
They
The
know
other
they're
one
there.
for-
Yeah, they don't bother small companies.
I had once was asked, and actually it was when I was in business in New York, and it was the state.
Hmm.
Guy actually came in this in a state car, walked up. Now he walked up and asked me if we had a handicapped accessible vehicle. I said, it's out on rent right now. When would you like it?
Yeah.
So anyhow, David, do you want to talk about fleet?
Sure. Well, understand fleet, of course, is the generic term for your rental cars. And the important part of the fleet is to do the best you can to match your rental fleet with your customer. In your particular case, you're going to be, I think your business plan was to start with leasing B2B, right? And have you figured out what those customers are looking for?
We think so. Yeah, we've got just in terms of makes and models, VW ID4s, which is an all-electric car with 230 something miles of range, and then the Ford F-150 Lightning. Now those are not for sale yet, but we've got reservations on 30 or so.
Good.
Okay. And you understand the pricing? All right. Typically what we do, we'll start off with putting our cars into classes. We don't generally set up our fleet. We don't put them in classes based on price or based on age. So we don't have necessarily a cheaper rate for the older car. All right. And we don't necessarily have a different class for a newer car or what we pay. What we do is typically put them in a class that the customer will understand. And this was set up, of course, we mentioned it before, the SIPP, Standard Industry Practice and Procedure. This was basically set up years ago for travel agents so that they could understand what size car they might be looking for a customer, but you're going to run into the same thing. So, you've got your economy, your compact. How, if you are setting these up by size, which we typically do, nowadays that's become kind of confusing. In other words, you can put let's say you've got a compact car and you're going to call that a Nissan Sentra, just for the sake of talk. Well, that Nissan Sentra is bigger than a Mercedes C-Class. All right. And yet there's $20,000 difference between the two. All right. So we have to watch what we're doing. You might take a look at, if you have any competition in the electric field, take a look at what they're doing. But if I were you, I would look very closely for size. You're going to have a client that wants just a compact car, an EV, for somebody to run around and do errands. All right. You're going to have somebody that needs a bigger one because they're going to transport 2 or 3 people and some luggage or whatever. All right. So you want to put them in the categories like this. And of course, your F-150 is a pickup truck. That would be a separate category. All right. And you can, on your website, are you going to have a website, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, you can put a picture of the car on the website and price each car separately. Because of the nature of your business, you don't necessarily have to put them in these categories if you're going to be selling each one individually with different rates.
Okay, good to know.
Understand, if you had a 2020 VW and you bought a 2022 VW, they wouldn't, if they were the same car, they wouldn't have a different rate.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the key issue. And you put somewhat categorize the size the best you can. All right, so if you take a look at Enterprise and others, you're going to see all kinds of other categories. your premium for luxuries, your full-size van, your small SUV, your standard SUV, your full-size SUV, luxury, it goes crazy. So you pick what works for you. And as we talk about website a little later, yours will be much easier. You don't have to worry about all of this stuff. If you just try to categorize by price and put them on the website, show pictures of the individual cars. New or used. In the airport market, we always ran new cars. And there were reasons for that. Number one, in the airport market, you'd have over 1 million cars, even back when I was in it. You couldn't get that many used cars, no matter how hard you tried. All right. Also, the factories came out, and Ford being the first one, if I remember correctly, and then Chrysler, or maybe Chrysler first, they came out and said, look, we want all of your customers to drive Fords.
Mhm.
All right, well, what kind of deal can we make? And the factories were offering all kinds of special deals to the rental car industry. And so that's the reason that we all had new cars, and we got special fleet pricing, et cetera. The other issue is the big boys, when they go out and buy cars, they're not buying them like you think they are. We buy them by the pound. All right, that's what we call it. What happens? We call the factory rep, he comes over. All right, we sit there, we say, okay, I want to buy 100 of these, 200 of those, 500 of those, and 600 of those. And the question, when can you deliver? We don't talk equipment, we don't talk color, we don't talk anything. They're called fleet equipped. All right. Which is standard stuff that the average retail customer is going to want, but none of the super bells and whistles, no.
Mhm.
And the big negotiation is delivery date. Because I've got cars to sell, I've got cars to come in, I can't have them overlap, I don't have the room. All right, and of course, the factories then came up with repurchase programs, and they said, you buy a car from us for $9,500 today, we'll buy it back from you for $7,000 in a year. And that was called a buyback program or repurchase program. So consequently, we were buying them all on repurchase programs. We knew exactly what our monthly cost was going to be per car. And we stayed with that. Okay, I could go one more step. Some Harvard graduate went to work for one of the factories, and he had an epiphany. And he said, you know, if we had a 6-month program instead of a 12-month repurchase program, we could double our fleet sales. Whoa, how intelligent. So they did it. Well, they lost a bundle on it, and eventually you see, the factories went broke. All right, Chrysler twice, General Motors once, Ford escaped it because they're better managed. So anyhow, now the repurchase programs are gone. They're still buying new cars. That's pretty much expected in the airport. But remember, now they're holding on to cars as long as 18 months, sometimes 2 years. But how long is a new car new? A new car is new. When you rent from Hertz or Enterprise, you might get a 500-mile car. You might get a 50,000-mile car. All right. What they typically try to do is take their used cars that are high mileage and move them over to their local stores and keep the lower mileage cars at the airport. Okay, in the neighborhood, the operators are smaller and no fleet repurchase programs were available. Every now and then a dealer would pop up with one of his own. If you buy 10 of these or 5 of those or whatever, but very seldom, and it's spotty around the country. So the local market has always been used cars. A few occasional new cars, but primarily used. And people are fine with it. The average person has no clue 1 year from another on some of these cars. All right, as long as the car is clean, properly maintained, safe, nice looking, they're happy. We used to have classes in our classroom, in our offices, and people would rent a car from Charlotte and drive in to the course, and we asked them numerous times, did you rent a car? Yeah. Who'd you rent from? Okay. What's the mileage on the car? Gee, I don't know. I didn't look. Well, do you have your rental agreement with you? Well, yeah. And they pull it out and look. Oh my goodness. Car had 30,000 miles on it. All right. There's your new car at the airport. Okay. So the point of it is, for normal operations in the local market, we don't spend the money for new cars. We'll buy a car 2-3 years old, let someone else take the depreciation, because that first year or two is nasty for depreciation. So that's typically what we do. Okay, then as far as fleet mix, what do we do to start up? Well, obviously we showed you some ideas for starting up basically a vanilla fleet, just a standard cookie cutter fleet. Yours is going to be a little different. All right, so you've already done your due diligence and you've decided you're going to start up with a certain fleet. You've got VW, got F-150 coming. Of course, that's the electric F-150, right? By the way, did you get a price on that thing?
We got the price that we put the reservation down under, which was I think 55,000 or so. But when we turn that into an actual order, that's I think when we add, any options or anything like that we put on. So we don't have a firm price. With that might go up or down, probably up, but
Probably up.
I would imagine about 60,000. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, because a
Have
regular
you?
and
And then-
four-door pickup is 50.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, they're expensive.
Yeah.
And you, of course, have figured out your cost on that and what your profit's going to be on a lease program.
Yeah, we think so.
Okay, because your monthly payment on that thing is going to be about 1,500 a month.
Yep.
And you're going to lease that to a company for how much?
I'll double check what our pricing is going to be. We've got before we started in with this program with you guys, we had worked up a per week price. The other thing we're putting into it, you guys mentioned charging before. So we're gonna package. We're gonna actually package all the fueling into that agreement. So the customers would be charging at our charging stations.
Yeah.
And then they'd have we're going to give them a card so they can access other public charging networks, kind of like
Yeah.
fast chargers out and about if they need to.
Right.
But they don't pay for that separately. That's just kind of bundled into the price.
Okay.
So we've got that. So again, this was before we had kind of started up with you guys, and we're learning a ton. But we had a per week price and a per mile price. Yes, Jim.
Okay, so about what would be the revenue? What revenue would you plan on that F-150 then?
I'll double check. I'm not sure offhand. We were anticipating that, we make a little bit of profit on everything. But going out of the gate, we had not, we're using this program as a customer acquisition program a little bit. So we're not optimizing our revenue equation right now. But let me go back and double check, and we do have, a pro forma and stuff like that, and I'll let you know.
here's something you ought to consider. Remember the story David told about the car rental or the when Hertz bought what was it, David? When Hertz bought Zipcar.
Oh yeah.
They were providing charge cards so that people could buy gasoline.
Gas cards, yeah.
And it was abused. So if you're going to set that up, I would give you a suggestion right now. You set it up on a credit card. Yeah, because you can get your own credit card, with
Yeah.
your label and everything on it.
Yeah.
And just reimburse them based on the charges that they do.
Okay.
So in other words, if they have to go to a public charge station, then you can monitor and know how many cars and how many times they charged it.
Hmm.
And then you would just, in other words, just do it all on a reimbursement.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes perfect sense. And what we're also thinking about doing is just, and, again, we feel like, we still have a lot of risk, but because it's B2B, we're not as, and we're doing, checks on our customers, and they're kind of on the hook. We're not as concerned. We would be very concerned if it was doing this stuff to individuals. But that's a super good point. The other thing is we're going to look at putting, we've got to put some language into the agreement around the number of times they can use those cards in a given month and stuff like that as well.
How many, what does it cost to charge a vehicle?
If you're out, so if I'm charging at my house, it costs, $10-12 to fill up, say 300 miles or so.
Okay.
But if you're out, David, you mentioned, or somebody mentioned that it's not that much different from gasoline. If you are doing a fast charge out at, not a Tesla, but one of the networks is called EVgo and another one's called Electrify America.
Mhm.
And these are basically out in, shopping malls and grocery store chains and stuff like that. That's where they're putting these up. And they're very high powered. So they charge you up in about 20 or 30 minutes. Those, your fill up is, it's under gas usually in most areas, but not by much. You're still looking at, I don't know, $40, something like that to fill up from 0 to full.
I wouldn't have thought it was that expensive. I don't think people think about that.
It's, it's not the electricity, it's each one of those stations, even if you're not, even if it's a charging company that's not buying land to put these up, it's not even a gas station.
Infrastructure.
Yeah. It's all that utility gear and everything. These are, it takes a lot of power. The one I used to do this, putting these stations in, and if you have 3 or 4 very high power DC fast chargers, that's a megawatt of power you have to supply.
Wow.
From the utility. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of infrastructure.
A lot of juice.
It's a lot of, it's a big request from the utility. So, you've got a lot of capital costs in there, and that's really where the cost comes.
Yeah, that's
from.
where you got to get.
Yeah, the electrons are pretty cheap. It's all this stuff that delivers the electrons.
That's interesting. It opens up another thought process on owning an electric car.
Yeah. I mean, if you can charge at home, it's great. If you charge at home and you drive more than 10-12,000 miles a year, even if you pay more for the vehicle, you're probably making your money back, and it's probably it's a good deal. Yeah, but if you don't have a place to charge at home and you're going around charging at these high powered DC charging stations, it probably doesn't work out financially.
Interesting. Thank you.
Okay. Jim, why don't you talk about the 15 packs? Although I don't think you're going to have any, are you, Malcolm?
No, I don't think so. But could you just actually walk us through, just in case? We've got some folks in our company that are talking about shuttle vans and things like that, and they do make electric versions. So I don't think we'd be leasing these out, but just in case, could you walk us down real quick?
Well, there's a big market for those vans for the off-airport operators. You can talk to the gang about the fact that a lot of those are going to electric and natural gas.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it for a moment.
Okay.
Some insurance companies will wince at the idea of renting or leasing 15 passenger vans. Here's some things to think about. You want to make sure that the drivers are experienced drivers. We suggest the drivers be over 30 years of age and have a commercial driver's license. In California, they must have a CDL.
Okay.
in order to drive one. Have each driver of the van, remember you're renting to the driver, not to the organization. And that's the big thing. You want to make sure that your insurance is in, or that your client sets up the insurance properly so that you are protected in the event that they put in a non-qualified driver. Have each driver of the van understand the acknowledgement pledge, which is we suggest you write one up and put it on the inside of the sun visor, you know, making sure that people are all belted in. Because one of the big problems with those types of vehicles, and we've all been to the airport and got in one of these vans, and the guy driving it or the gal driving it is driving like, how do I say this the polite way? Mario Andretti. And when they're going around the corner, the bags are flying and the people are sliding off the seats. Well, the unfortunate thing with a 15 or a 14 passenger van, if you get a bunch of folks that are, 250 pounds and they're not belted in, and the fellow or gal that's driving changes lanes really quickly because, I don't know, a dog runs out in front of them. You got 14 people in that van at 250 pounds, suddenly going to the left and suddenly going to the right. And then the van just lays on its side. So if they weren't belted in, or if they were belted in, it at least cuts back on that volume. So those are some things to understand about those vans. Another thing is spare tires. Spare tires and wheels for these vehicles, for the bigger vehicles, are very expensive. Now, the reason I bring it up is they're usually loaded or mounted underneath the back of the vehicle. You want to look into locking mechanisms for them. And even then, they're still going to steal them if they're parked someplace. We had, in one night, we lost 9 tires. And they were vans that were parked at a hotel for a convention. And somebody went in with a wire snipper and took all the tires. My form of fixing it was we had to replace all of the winding things. And I took all the tires and painted them yellow. I took one of those, they used to have them years ago where you would take the tire and put it in there and spin it to look and see where it was leaking air.
Yeah.
I just filled it with yellow paint. And I had the fellow that worked for us put on some rubber gloves and spin a tire and set it down on the thing and go to the next one. We put 9 tires on the back of those trucks that were all painted bright yellow. Nobody stole another tire after that. So
it's good, inventive.
A couple of things to think about in the larger capacity vehicles. I would have some special stickers made up for the back of every seat, just to remind the people that they need to be belted. All right, they're still not going to do it, but it's a good idea. Another thing is overhead. Some of these higher capacity vehicles are taller than most minivans. And somebody doesn't pay attention. I just had a case, it was funny. I was sitting in line waiting to grab a sandwich at a McDonald's, and the line was not moving. And I don't have any patience. So I just pulled out, I'm going someplace else. As I came around the corner, I saw why. A fellow tried to drive a high top 15 passenger van through the under thing.
Oh no. Yeah.
Bent it up, ripped the roof, everything, overhead damage. And most overhead damage is extremely expensive. So a caution there is to make sure that they are aware. We had we had trucks, box trucks. And I stole an idea from U-Haul. I had stickers made and we went out and we measured from the ground up how tall it was. And I had stickers made in the reverse and put them on the body so that every time you looked in the mirror, it told you how tall the truck was. And that worked out pretty well. It stopped the overhead damage.
Mhm.
The only other thing that I can think of for big vans is just to make sure that your driver is qualified. Okay. In fleet setup. We can rip through
Yeah,
this.
that's adorable.
Yeah, you like that?
This is a grandchild. This
No.
is great.
Yeah, it's cute, isn't it?
I don't think he's gonna get it off.
I don't think he'll get it out, although he does have the breaker bar going.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna maybe if he jumps on it. That's great.
I love that picture. You're not going to be buying used vehicles. So putting a car into service is going to be pretty straightforward for you. But there are some things that you need to do. You want to make sure that they're plated. Never rent a car on a temporary registration. Okay, go to the DMV and put plates on it. Another thing to do is check for recalls. Even though you picked it up from the dealer, it may have sat on his lot or in a marshaling yard for 2 to 3 months. And there could have been a recall on the vehicle. So you want to always check your vehicles for recalls. If you rent a vehicle with a recall on it, you can be held responsible if somebody gets hurt. You're not going to have to worry about this because I can't imagine you guys would ever do this. So never rent a salvage title car. Fleet maintenance, as we talked about when we were coming up with fleet maintenance, you're not going to be buying used vehicles, but you are going to have to maintain these kids. And the fact that they are heavier than a typical similar sized car, you're going to burn through tires. So make sure you buy the right tires for the cars. Don't go on the cheap because you will burn them out. If you have to replace a windshield, make sure that you replace it with an OEM windshield and OEM adhesives, because the cars today are made to crumple. And the windshields are part of the, how should I say, the structure of the car. Okay. Make sure you have a regular checklist for your guys and gals. Now let's say you're gonna drop off 10 cars to a fleet customer in Houston. Who's gonna maintain the cars? Are you gonna maintain them? Are you gonna?
Yes, that's we were anticipating maintaining them.
Okay. So does that mean you have to go to Houston and drag them out to a neutral spot and do the work?
Yes, potentially.
Okay. You want to make sure that it's done to the specs that you want it done.
Okay.
Even if you're going to farm it out. Let's say you contact the local, let's say you put 10 cars into Montana. Okay. And there's only one dealer in Missoula, but you're in, I don't know, what's another state? Anyway, you're 100 miles away.
Yeah.
Okay, to the next city.
Yeah.
Make sure that they are maintaining the vehicles to your specs and your level. Okay.
Gotta watch that because even new cars have a first inspection.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like 1,500 miles or something. I forget the exact number. But they want that car back, and they're gonna go through it and look for any issues that might pop up, especially if there's service requirements that come from the factory that
What-
go directly to the technicians.
Yeah.
You won't see those unless you look them up. So you got to plan for that.
Yeah, if you're gonna, and you're more than likely gonna have to farm it out on the people that are not nearby.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would suggest contact the nearest Tesla, Nissan dealer, Chevy dealer, what have you. To make sure that they have the ability to maintain the vehicles to the specs that the factory recommends and any other things that you want done to the
Mhm.
vehicle.
That's interesting. I just read that Cadillac has just lost like 273 dealers.
Why?
Cadillac is requiring that any dealer that wants to stay past this year sets up the infrastructure for electric cars. Basically to support the Cadillac Lyriq, which is coming out next year. And 273 dealers said, nope, no deal. We're out of here. And they left or
Really?
got canceled. Yeah. So
Wow.
Cadillac is down to less than 500 dealers in the United States and still dropping.
That's
Yeah.
that's surprising. So that was a third or so of their
Yeah,
dealers?
Yeah, yeah. They had 700 to something, dropped down to less than 500 actually.
I didn't know that. That's
And
that's
still
pretty-
dropping,
That's pretty
still
incredible.
dropping.
Yeah.
So, a lot
When,
of these dealers, they just didn't sell enough Cadillacs to worry about it, or the time is right for them to just close up and retire.
Yeah.
But they weren't prepared to install the infrastructure to support Cadillac's electric car plan.
Mhm.
Malcolm, maybe you ought to get a hold of your sales team and say, start calling caddy dealers.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good,
yeah.
that's a good takeaway. An opportunity.
Opportunity,
Yeah, you
call
could get a
caddy dealer.
Cadillac. Yeah, Cadillac
deal.
dealership would come pretty cheap right now. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's a beautiful thought process. Tracking devices. I don't know, does Tesla or other electric car companies put in GPS tracking in their cars?
Yeah, most of the ones that were the the ID4 and the Lightning anyway, you get telematics with that, so you can go on an app. But in addition, we're doing some stuff on the charging side. We're doing some stuff with Geotab. So
Okay.
we will for at least the next year, we're going to be putting Geotab telematics units in every car.
And what do they cost you?
They cost us $50, I think, wholesale per device, and then per month it's like a $20 a month
Okay.
charge.
We have a tracking device that's $179,
Okay.
and it includes starter interrupt and a backup battery.
Oh,
And
that's cool. Okay. Yeah.
you hardwire it, and there's no monthly fees for
Wow.
3 years. So when you get to that point, I'll send you some information, and it's on our website.
That's great. Okay.
And it'll tell you within 16, like all GPS, it'll tell you within 16 feet where the car is, and you can Google right down to the neighborhood and see if it's safe to go get the car.
That's fantastic. That starter interrupt sounds really good. We obviously don't have that with Geotab at all. I would say the reason we're working with them is they can provide us information on when the car is charging, so some EV specific data points.
Correct.
And for at least the time being, we kind of need that from the car. We may transition to something where we don't need that device in the middle anymore. We can go directly to Ford or VW to get that information, but for right now, we kind of need it from Geotab.
That's interesting, because I would have thought that the moment you plug in one of your cars, or you plug in a car to your infrastructure, that it would read what the car is and send you a notification of who's getting the electric.
They do on on certain kinds of chargers they do. So those those big high power chargers,
Yeah.
the fast chargers, those actually know which car is plugged in.
Okay.
But at a charger at your house, it doesn't have the communications there. So those
Yeah.
slower chargers don't have the same type of thing.
That makes sense.
And from our kind of tracking and billing and purposes like that, we want to know exactly how many kilowatt hours of energy that vehicle is taking for each charge event. So yeah, again, we might be able to transition away from this in 9 to 12 months, but for right now we're using Geotag because they'll actually give us a report on, hey, if you're looking at this car, it charged on these days, and these are the GPS coordinates where it charged, so we can use that for auditing on that fuel card, on that charge, the credit card. We can make sure that lines up with the charges that were made there.
Yeah.
And we can also look at any charges that somebody was doing at their house to make sure that either the company is reimbursing them for that electricity, or we're reimbursing them and getting paid by the company to do that.
I will get a hold of SVR because they have a thing called frequent stops. And I wonder if they may not have the ability to do that. So
That would be great. Yeah, we'd be
check it out.
super interested in that.
Yeah. Because this would be definitely less money. Road service. Do you get roadside service for the 1, 2, or 3 years? That the
I
vehicle-
believe that we do, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. If not, we've got roadside assistance for you.
Okay. Right.
Which is hysterical because they'll come out and jumpstart a car. Well, jumpstarting an electric car is pretty much not going to do it. But I don't know what kind of roadside assistance other than tires and flats. And if the battery goes dead, they have to at least tow it to a charging station. So
That's the big one. Yeah.
yeah, and you don't want them just towed by anybody. You want them towed with a flatbed and
Yeah.
so on. You want the proper equipment. So you want to talk to, we got a roadside guy and we can have you talk to them, find out what the factory has for them and what their restrictions are. And I can help you with that as well. Routine maintenance is pretty much straightforward. You plug it in and reprogram it. Sorry. That's pretty much what it is. This is important on the retail side, cleaning the vehicle. Never rent a dirty vehicle. When I was leasing part of my fleet to different companies, we would go out and pull the car from them and leave a replacement car on a regular basis. And then we would take it back to our shop and go through it. We would clean it, check the tire pressures, make sure that they were all good. And then we did the lube oil filter, stuff like that. Well, the benefit to doing all that, was bigger than what we expected, because we found that some of the cars were being treated really badly. I mean, we had things growing in the back seats.
Mhm.
Okay. And so it got to be a regular thing. We pulled the cars on a regular basis. You may want to consider that as part of your setup. You can go over, and by the way, one of the things that our training is designed to is to give you the tools. You can copy and paste everything in here to create your own policies and procedures. And we encourage you to do that. And when you get it done, if you want to send it back to us to have David or I or Barry look it over, we'll be more than happy to.
That would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
more than happy, because if you skip the step somewhere along the line, we might see it, we might not.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'd be more than happy to take a look at it. Ready tags, we did that. Don't fall in love with a car. Okay. It's only rubber paint and plastic. And in your case, rubber paint and plastic and a lot of batteries.
And a giant battery. Yeah.
Yes. And the concern here is if I'm going to have a vehicle in service, when it's time to dispose of that vehicle, dispose of it. That's what we talked about earlier, is having a predetermined time and place when you're going to dispose of the vehicle.
Okay.
And then stick to it. Because if you stretch it out, that's when they start getting the whiskers. And once a car gets whiskers, everybody
Going downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
sticky steering wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, can I ask a question also?
Yeah.
I looked into for Texas just getting a wholesale license,
Yes.
wholesale dealer's license. And we want to get started on this stuff pretty quickly, but my understanding is we don't need the wholesaler's license until we are going to be disposing of vehicles, or if we perhaps wanted to buy vehicles wholesale on at auction or something like that. Buy used vehicles at auction. Is that right, or do we need that earlier?
As a rental car company, you can sell cars at the auction through the rental lane.
Okay.
Okay. Having the wholesale license would give you the opportunity to buy cars at the wholesale auction.
Okay.
Okay. But it doesn't have to be, if I were you, yeah, I would check into the regs for California and Houston.
Okay.
Because when I first moved to California, I had my wholesale license from New York, and I was buying and selling cars at the auction in California. So once you sign up with an auction, you can buy and sell cars anywhere you want to go.
Okay.
So I would look into which one's the easiest and which one's going to be the cheapest for insurance.
Okay.
Okay. What are you going to do about the facility? We talked briefly about it.
We've got an office in Houston. Obviously, we are looking for offsite storage of the vehicles, a garage or warehouse type of a situation, and then deploying the vehicles. We're planning to deliver these vehicles, and I know we talked a little bit last week, I think, about we want to have the contract originate and the rental be a Houston rental car, but we would like to get those vehicles delivered, whether we're doing it or somebody else is doing it, to people outside the state. And if we start building up customer bases, maybe we have an actual presence in places like Colorado and stuff like that. But our intent is to store these in Houston, Texas, in an offsite facility somewhere.
Interestingly enough, we just got done training a company that is going to be doing retail electric vehicles, and they took over a warehouse, and all the vehicles are inside.
That's great. You can run them, no fumes or anything like that. That's cool. Yeah.
And they put all their charging stations inside, and the cars are inside under a cover and obviously under the roof. And the only thing that I mentioned to them afterwards in an email was to make sure they had the proper insurance for the building.
Okay.
And that the insurance company knows that you're storing vehicles. The industry is still spooked on batteries. So they're still waiting for everything to explode. And but then again, like I think I told you the other day, the insurance company still says we can't rent Teslas, or I'm sorry, Yugos. So they're not entirely up to speed
Yeah.
with the automobile industry.
Just out of curiosity, is that company, you've mentioned those guys before that are renting the Teslas retail?
Mhm.
Have they kind of, are they, have they made a press release, or, is this?
They're in Miami.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in Miami and they're doing retail rentals. I don't know if they've actually done any press releases or anything like that, but they've got a website.
Yeah.
Got a
Okay.
beautiful website,
Yeah.
and they use the marketing companies that they can use.
Mhm.
All right, that we suggest for retail companies.
Mhm.
They're doing extremely well.
And they're doing it all on social media, by the way.
Yeah, social media. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And they're using, sorry, David, did you say they're using the marketing companies that you guys put them in touch with in terms of?
Yeah, Car Rental Express, I believe they're using.
Mhm.
And I think there was another one, I forgot the name, but that was relatively new to me.
Well, Car
That
Rental
they're-
Express is now hooked up with a couple of other websites.
Yeah,
And so once you sign up with Car Rental Express, you get the other sites and you even appear on Kayak.
Okay.
So, yeah,
yeah, and then of course there's always Turo,
Yeah.
yeah.
if you want to use Turo.
Now, you talked the last week, Jim, about just Turo's insurance, and definitely you got to have your own insurance
Yeah.
if you want to be protected there, right? Okay.
Yeah, I would use them as a reservation source and that's it.
Okay.
And I would keep my price up because Billy Bob down the street that bought a Tesla and thought he was going to put it on Turo and make a killing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the car's been sitting and it's not being rented and he drops his rate down to $30 a day.
Mhm.
Okay, so you got to be careful with that with Turo because
Yeah, most of the folks on Turo are just trying to generate some money to help them make the monthly payment.
yeah,
And it was never designed to run a business.
no,
So when you run the numbers and try to use Turo to run a profit, you're competing with Mildred with her Toyota Corolla,
Mm-hmm.
or with Beverly with her Tesla that sits 4 days a week. All right, and $30 a day, 120 a week to her is great.
Yeah. She already owns the car, right? It's
Yeah,
not
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's what you're competing with when you go with a company like Turo.
not to digress, but I have the same thing about Uber and Lyft. Those companies are so successful, and I use it and I think it's a great service, but I mean, they basically it's cheaper than cabs, and it's more ubiquitous than cabs and stuff like that, but it's because Mike down the street is using his personal vehicle for the benefit of Uber, and Uber doesn't have to pay any money for that. It's just he's like, well, I'll just use my personal car to get it anyway. But it's just interesting, these companies kind of taking advantage somewhat of somebody that wants some extra money and has a piece of equipment or something that they want to rent out or
Well,
to
worse than that, the poor guy that's doing the driving doesn't realize that his own insurance will not cover
yeah
a Uber ride
yeah
because they don't cover taxis, and that's what Uber is. It's nothing more than a taxi service.
yeah every time I call, my personal insurance is Geico, and every time I call them to make a change or something, they're like, hey, are you using this for any kind of ride share or anything like that? They're always double and triple checking that.
That's right. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to digress.
Okay, so your location.
so I would first of all, you're going to have 8 to 10 or more charging stations, and I would suggest you guys are in that business, not me. You know what you need to have for the charging stations inside the places. It would do, have cleaning facility, the whole deal. And you may want to make arrangements with the delivery guys. There are a lot of companies out there you can, and I don't know if you know who you're going to contact to deliver the vehicles. You're not all going to jump in a car and drive to Montana. Okay. But you're going to need to contact transporters.
Yeah.
And you can just look them up on the internet. They're all over there.
Yeah.
If you don't find what you want, it's a good idea to get a hold of the Manheim auctions, because the Manheim, especially if you sign up for the Manheim auctions, you get a really, really good price on picking up and delivering cars.
Okay.
So there's a thought for you as well. This location, when we were training in the office. We had a conference room and we started talking about facilities, and we put up this picture. And a girl in the back started to laugh. And I mean, she was like, it was a big belly laugh, because she was there to learn about rental car companies. And we were saying, no, this is not what your facility should look like. And she said, my dad's been in business for 50 years and it looks like you took a picture of his place.
Yeah.
Okay. And it got even worse, because then we said, well, that's a Rent-A-Wreck location.
Yeah.
See? And guess what? So is this.
Yeah.
So which facility would you want to go to or drop your wife off at? And she agreed. And then David even said about the inside. David, what'd you tell her about the fish tank?
When we were talking about the location, all right, we also mentioned, and please don't have a fish tank with green water and dead fish floating on the surface. And she started to laugh and howl and hoot. She said, my father has one of those. I've been trying to get him to get rid of it for 2 years.
Oh my God. That's
So at least one person in the audience knew that we were not kidding. We
yeah.
have seen these things.
Yeah. Where did they make this stuff up? Oh no, it's not.
No, it's
Yeah,
real
no,
stuff.
That's hilarious.
I have actually had an occasion where I had to step over the dog to get in the door
Oh yeah.
of a U-Save auto rental store.
Wow.
Dog didn't move. He wasn't worried about people at all. All right. And of course, my franchisee didn't think anything of it either until he got the termination letter.
I went to a Rent-A-Wreck location in Colorado. And when I walked in the door, I was surprised. Well, actually, when I drove in the driveway, because he had a Taco Bell franchise and was renting cars from the
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Wow.
Okay? But it was worse than that. On the end of the counter, he had one of those refrigerators with the worms in it, so you could buy fishing bait.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Jim, where was this?
It was outside of Denver, in one of the little towns.
Oh my God.
Began with
That's-
an E, like Evergreen or Ever something or other,
Yeah.
in Colorado. And it was right near a lake. And there was apparently a lot of business for fishing worms.
For bait. Wow. I mean, that's probably not the way you want to do it, but I got to admire his
Ingenious.
entrepreneurial.
Yeah. I did not order lunch there.
Okay. Good.
Couple of things to think about. Make sure you got the zoning. Even if you're in a warehouse, you gotta have the proper zoning. Okay. And parking for your fleet and for your people. And visibility to the public, if it's going to be a retail thing, yeah. And you could combine, like you said, you have an office there. It can all be at one location. Excuse me. Make sure you got a place to wash them. Adding to an existing business, we're not going to talk about that because you're not going to need it. In the future, you may, and this stuff is all information that you can use. Making sure that you have, like, you have a sign for fishing bait if you're going to be selling fishing bait at the counter.
Mhm.
Okay. And proper signage about where to park and so on. Your rental counter, you're probably going to want a rental counter at the location. Just keep it clean and neat. You'd be surprised how nasty they get to look after a while. And you don't see it because you see it every day.
Mhm.
One of the things that we like to tell people about their location is every time you go in, look at it like a customer for the very first time. Look
Absolutely.
at it the way a customer sees it. And that helps big time. One of the things that I used to do walking in the front door of somebody's location, I would look to see how many cigarette butts are laying just outside the door.
Mhm.
Okay. And David's pet peeve is the transmissions that are sitting on the side of the building or in
The
front.
building, yeah.
Yeah. Mechanics love, how do you say it, David? Mechanics
I
love.
can
to
always,
take-
I can always tell if a location has a mechanic.
Yeah.
Because they love to pull out an engine or pull out a transmission. They know how to take them out, but they don't know how to put them back. And believe me, I've witnessed this many times.
Yeah.
They always will have that engine sitting outside. It'll sit there for years.
Yeah.
With a rag stuffed into the manifold.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the car that it belongs to is somewhere.
Is-
Oh,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
So,
So you don't want that type of thing. All right. I would like to mention too, on this warehouse idea. We saw that with the electric cars in Miami.
Mhm.
Also, if you walk into a modern new car dealership today and you walk into the service center, you're gonna find out it's spotless.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I was in the service center for my brand, Mercedes, not long ago. I couldn't believe it. I mean, you could eat off the floor. Forget
Yeah.
the 3-second rule. It was just amazing. And I think the same thing might be good for you because you will have either retail or wholesale or B2B.
you're gonna have
You're
a
gonna
higher.
have somebody walk into your facility.
Yeah.
And you wanted to present the image that you're trying to present in your business plan. And if they walk into a beat up old warehouse and nobody cares what it looks like because all of your business is B2B, that leaves a pretty bad image
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
what you're trying to do. Especially you're trying to use technology. You want to be a couple of steps ahead of the industry. You want to try to reinvent the wheel. You want to look like it.
Yeah.
You want to look like it. You don't want to look like some old junkyard dog that just woke up one day and said you love electric cars.
100%. Yeah. Great input.
Okay,
All right, sorry.
that's all right. Remember, when you're putting the vehicle into service, you're gonna have, and you might want to, and if you haven't thought of this, set up a folder on every car.
Yes. Yeah. I wrote that down.
You can get those at Reynolds and Reynolds.
Hey, oh, Jim, sorry. You mentioned rentals, and that was another one. You said that they had good contracts, and so I looked at it over the weekend, and I
Yeah.
must have wrote it down wrong or something. Is it rentals and rentals?
Reynolds, REYNOLDS, Reynolds and Reynolds.
That's why. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. Can you spell one more time? REY.
REYNOLDS, Reynolds and Reynolds.
Okay.
And they've got everything. They've got everything you need for dealership, used car lots, printing, contracts, lease contracts, everything you need.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I remember we wanted to contact them for a lease contract and a rental contract form. So anyway,
Right.
thank you. Yep.
And they
Now
have,
remember, remember while you're doing that, and I think we're gonna get to contract in a minute, but remember, you have to have a state-specific contract for each state that you're gonna do business in.
Yeah.
And some of them might be relatively generic, but you have to be cautious that wherever you do a lease or a rental, you've got a state-specific contract and state-specific insurance.
Yeah.
You can buy insurance for your Houston operation and then try to open in Colorado and carry over the insurance. No, doesn't work that way.
David, that was one of the things that we were, talking about last week a little bit with Jim. Right now, we just have one customer, one B2B customer in Colorado. So we want to rent them or lease them, a handful of vehicles, 4 vehicles. And Jim, you mentioned, hey, one way to do it, if you're not, if you don't have a huge amount of business in that particular state, you could make the contract, you could rent them the vehicle in Texas. And then, we're going to have the vehicles in Texas and then, arrange to have them delivered to the customer. So our thought process was we'd have the insurance in Texas, we'd have the contracts Texas specific. They would say, yes, we're acknowledging we are renting the vehicle in Texas and then having them delivered to us in Colorado until we have, 5,
Until you
6,
have a
7
presence.
B2B
Yeah.
customers.
Yeah. Because you're going to be delivering it to the end user, you're not going to be delivering it to one of your locations.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
Right.
so, and like any rental car company, if you drive down the street to Enterprise, you'll probably see 7 different license plates from 7 different states.
Right. Okay.
So that the vehicles can go anywhere. Where you run into a hiccup is if the vehicle is going to be consistently in that particular state. And if you have multiple claims in that particular state, the insurance company is going to step up to the pump and say, hey, you got to have a policy for this state.
Right.
Okay. That's a great threshold.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Having a ready line, that's pretty much a given. I don't need to talk to you about having a ready line. If the car's ready, it's ready. It's in the line. It's going to be underneath the cover. I'll pull the cover off so you can see the car you're going to get, Mr. Jones, because it's going to be inside and plugged in. David?
Yeah.
You had ESPN or whatever it is. Rental contract is next. You want to do it?
Yeah, we talked about it a moment ago. But you want to remember that it's a legally binding document between the operator and you, or between you and the customer, and it has to be completely filled out. It describes the customer's responsibilities, the limits of the use by the customer and authorized drivers, and remedies for the breach of the contract. The contract comes basically in 2 parts. You've got the front, where you put all the basic rental information, but you got the backside, which is called terms and conditions. And that's where all the exciting reading is. So if you want to have a great evening, take one of these contracts and read the back.
Have an adult beverage.
It's
so exciting, you won't be able to contain yourself.
Yeah.
But even though it's always been called a rental agreement, we prefer to refer to it as a contract.
Okay.
Because it is a legally binding contract. However, understand it does require 2 signatures. You have to have your signature as the operator. You have to have the other party's signature as the customer. So a contract has to have 2 parties. And that's simple. Just make sure you've got a signature. So one way or another, when you're renting remotely, you want to get at least a DocuSign contract that you can keep on file, and you have to be prepared to print a hard copy. If for some reason you should ever have to walk into court, you're not going to show the judge your iPhone and have him think that's a signed legal document.
Mm-hmm.
The courts are 20 years behind technology. all right? And they're not catching up very fast, all right? So you want to make sure that one way or another, you've got a two-party signed contract. All right, and that we think that at least once in your life, you should read the backside of the contract. Because it'll answer a whole lot of questions that you might have through the process.
Okay.
Okay. And you want to be well versed on that. Okay, so understand if you're doing this electronically, your computer is going to print one side. You have to provide the customer with both sides. So you're going to be printing two pieces of paper. Now, if you use one of the software programs that are designed for car rental, they'll typically provide you with the backside, hard copy backside. And then you just load that into your printer and let the software print the front side. And that way you get one piece of paper with both the front and the back. So that's the common way to do it. Okay, coming down, remember that some states have special laws regarding the wording of your rental agreement or your lease agreement. And so you want to make sure that you're using a document that's approved by your insurance company. All right, for use in that state. Insurance companies also have interest in this. All right, so if you go with most of the insurance companies, they'll provide or direct you to a place for a state-specific contract, typically, like Jim said, rentals and rentals. All right. You never deliver a car into the hands of somebody without a signature. And remember, signature on file doesn't work. Who is on file? Where's Mr. on file? And prove to me that Mr. on file signed this contract.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. You rented a car to John Smith, but you got signature on file. What does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I'm a judge. I'm very busy. Get out of here. All right. I want you to understand that. And a lot of people who are renting cars remotely don't quite get it. All right. And the DocuSign is coming along, but even in the financial world, they're questioning DocuSign in some occasions. So you want to be cautious. All right. So anyhow, we like to refer to it a contract. Anybody you have in your business that's doing that should understand it to be a contract. And make sure you've got a properly filled out contract signed by both parties. You never, ever destroy a contract or a rental agreement. They should be numerical. All right. Should you ever be visited by the state for sales tax, which incidentally you need to collect, they'll want to see things numeric. And if they find one missing, they're going to charge you sales tax on that missing agreement. All right, so be prepared. The other thing you have to understand, if you're in the rental side, or excuse me, the retail side, and you have an employee, what could possibly prevent an employee where a customer rented on a credit card, but decided to pay cash on return? The employee pockets the cash, destroys the rental agreement. To prevent that. Does it happen? Absolutely. Jim has run into it. I've run into it numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you never let it from the outside. You never destroy a contract. You want to see a printout of every car that was returned and the contract numbers, et cetera, keep track of that. Okay, coming down, we've got a sample of a manual format rental agreement. All right, now this is a sample only. Understand that every state or 13 states have their own requirements. This is a sample of the rental agreement. very briefly, because I want you to understand this before you get started. Up in the upper left, the customer's information.
Mhm.
You do not rent to Airbnb. Airbnb may pay for it. You may bill Airbnb. You're renting to a living person who's picking up the unit. All right, so understand that. So it might be Jack Smith and employer is Airbnb, and down at the bottom, you're billing Airbnb and the billing address, that's fine. But the person picking up the unit is the one you're renting to. Any additional driver should be listed. The customer's insurance company coming down, plenty of room to put it there. On B&B, you're expecting your customer to insure this unit, right?
Right.
Yes, customer's gonna provide his own. So you're gonna wanna know the name and all the detail on that insurance company. You're gonna wanna get a binder. A binder of insurance showing you as additional insured.
Mhm.
And you wanna make sure you've got that. Coming down, collision damage waiver. Nowadays, that's all of them are RCP, renters collision protection. This won't bother you unless you're renting retail. All right, but the question here is, I want you to make sure that you know who is gonna pay for that $800 dent on the left rear.
Mhm.
I want you to know who's gonna pay for that. Because if you don't get it up front, then you're gonna have to pay.
Mhm.
Okay, coming down, this one I think is a Maryland contract. No, Pennsylvania contract, rejection of uninsured motorists, that won't affect you. Up on the top, you're gonna put in your unit number. You want to assign a unit number so that you can use a software program. Whatever software you choose will ask for a unit number. We're coming down, replacement vehicle. You give a customer number one, and he calls you, Malcolm, the unit is unacceptable. Can we exchange it for another one? You say, fine. You give him number three, that's the replacement vehicle. Whenever they exchange units, you want that information on the rental agreement. All right, you want to keep track of that because you don't know exactly why they're exchanging. I had a customer, this true story. I had a customer out of the Los Angeles office for Dollar Rent-A-Car, took a car, came back in about 20 minutes, exchanged the car. They inspected the car, there was no damage, and let him go. Less than an hour later, the police were on site. This guy had hit a nun in a crosswalk.
Oh my gosh.
You know what a nun is?
Yeah.
You don't run him down,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in a crosswalk.
Oh my gosh.
And so we gave them the information. They asked for all this information. We gave it to them. They turned it over to Highway Patrol and they got the guy in about an hour and a half. But the customer, it was a hit and run. The customer thought he got away with it.
Mhm.
Someone else got the license number. It came back to us and we had this information. And the police told us one thing that I thought was interesting. If we were not able to prove who had the car at that time and what they have now,
Mhm.
the police would have assumed one of our employees was driving the car.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's incumbent on us to prove our innocence.
Yeah.
All right. So don't believe any of this crap, innocent until proven guilty. No, not today. Okay, so that's it. I won't beat it up. Coming down. Vehicle must not be driven outside blank mile radius. This is where you decide what geographic limits you want to put on the use of the car. Like you say, cannot be driven outside Colorado, cannot be driven outside of Texas. You can say it can't be driven outside of the United States. However, the car can go, typically, your insurance will let the car go to Canada
Mhm.
and the 49 states, not Hawaii, that's a bit of a stretch, and definitely not Mexico.
Mhm.
If it goes into Mexico and you ever see it again, that would be a surprise.
Mhm.
All right. So this is where you decide, coming down, your gas out, your gas in, or your charge out, charge in.
Mhm.
Coming down, you acknowledge the vehicle has no damage except, and there's usually another form or a drawing of a car on another form you can use, or you can say dent left rear, scratch right front. Going to the top on the right-hand side, you've got your car info, but you got your date out, your date due in. Mr. Smith, when will you be returning our car? And then you put it down. Make sure, number one, on a rental contract that it never exceeds 30 days. That's a lease, not a rental. It's a different animal. And it's a different insurance policy. Okay? So you want to make sure you've got a rental policy and a leasing policy. You've always got to have a due back date. Why? If there's no due back date, they never legally have to return the car. And you can't file it stolen because you gave it to him. You didn't steal it, you gave it to him. All right, well, he never brought it back. Well, when was he supposed to bring it back? Contract doesn't say. All right, so, sorry, Mr. McVeigh, we'll see you, the court's busy, get out of here. Okay, so then you're gonna have the rates and you're gonna come down and take a deposit. This is an interesting thing. In rental, we typically require a deposit of the expected rental plus at least $250. On a lease, we got the same requirement. What are you gonna want? First, last? Have you decided what you're gonna ask the customer for when you provide a lease?
No, we haven't gotten that far.
Okay, well, you wanna start thinking about it.
Yep.
Companies are, to my experience, large companies don't think anything of putting you on a 90-day pay. Especially if they're trying to preserve cash flow. It's
Mhm.
not up to the guy that you rented the car to, it's up to the CFO.
Yeah.
And if the CFO said, oh, okay, McVeigh on those electric cars, we'll put him on 90-day pay. If he squawks, we might move him up to 60.
Mhm.
All right. Well, the point is, are you covered for that? What happens if they just say, okay, we're done with McVeigh to return the car and they owe you for 2 months?
Mhm.
Now what? You get me?
Here's,
So you want to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
here's a suggestion that I did when I did, because I had taken my leasing, Camelot Leasing, and we were doing 4-week leases, or 4-week months rather. When I delivered the car, they had a check waiting for me for the first month, rounded up to the nearest 100,
Mhm.
and for a deposit, and the first month. So if the bill was $450, then I rounded it up to a $500 deposit and $450 for the first month, and I handed them an invoice
Mhm.
for the second month. So they had it 30 days in advance. And then I would follow through and bill them every month. If with the understanding that I already have a month in my hip
Yeah.
as a deposit. And if they start to become slow pay or something like that, I can go yank the car.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you took first month, rounded up, last month on delivery, and then so you had that security of the last month already.
Well, no,
billed
I
upfront?
had, you can look at it that way. What I did was whatever the monthly payment was,
Mhm.
I rounded it up to the nearest 100.
Okay.
And then that was what I took for deposit.
Okay.
So theoretically, that would become the last month.
Okay.
And then I collected the first month before the car went out.
Yep.
And then I gave them an invoice for the following month for
So
month
that-
number 2. And
so
they
that
had
time-
30 days to run it through their books.
Yeah.
Okay. And matter of fact, with Xerox, they asked me to give them 2 months in advance because it was easier for them.
Mhm.
And then they would just send me a check every month.
Okay.
And by going to the 4-week month, there was no, well, now wait a minute, this month it's due on the 7th. And we picked it up on the 7th, but last month had too many days. No, it's just 4 weeks.
Okay.
All right?
Could I ask just a couple of questions about I know we talked about the differences between lease and rental, and I know that the insurance is different. Is there, I think we're probably going to be doing, I guess, what are the trade-offs? If we have the option of doing rentals and maybe stringing a couple of rental agreements together to make a longer term, or doing leases generally, are there pros and cons? Like I know we're looking through a rental agreement now. What are the differences, the major differences between the lease and the rental from our point of view?
The big difference is insurance.
Okay.
And because on a rental, your insurance is good for 30 days.
Okay.
If you go to day 31, you don't have rental insurance anymore. Okay. By going to a short-term lease, you can drop your insurance on the vehicle, and you can get the lessor or lessee rather to do an insurance policy showing you as the additional insured and the registered owner, loss payee, or not title owner and loss payee. So those are the big differences. Insurance. Second of all, is there's different legislation and different rules for leases and rentals. Like rentals, the rental is just pretty much, okay, the rental expires Friday, bring the car in, see you, bye.
Mhm.
With a lease, the lease may expire on a particular day, but there's still a balance. Whether it's up to the person that's leasing the car to dispose of it, or whether the leasing company is going to take the car back and dispose of it on their own.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's a difference in the legalities of who owns the car and who owns the title.
Right, let me interject.
Go.
That one of the differences with a rental, the customer has basically no rights.
Okay.
It's very short use of your car. On a lease, the customer has rights,
Mhm.
all right? And so that leasing contract is written that way to give them a lot more rights than a rental would. And Jim, like Jim said, either at the end of the lease, they return it to you and you sell it. That's called a closed-end lease, or an open-end lease. They're responsible for the sale balance of the car.
Mhm.
All right. So that's more like a longer term lease, like you might get out of a dealership, 2-3 year lease.
Mhm.
If it's short term, I think Jim might have covered it. You could write 3 rental contracts, all right, for 3 28-day periods, and have them signed in advance and collect. And then that would be a short-term lease, but it's on a rental agreement.
And then that way you would leave your insurance in place and you
Right.
have all of the protections of a rental.
Right.
Okay.
And it could be the same price.
That sounds great, and sorry for kind of diving into this one, but the lease where the customer has rights on the vehicle. I know you talked about kind of at the end of a lease agreement and disposing of the vehicle, but what else? What other rights are we protecting by doing what you just talked about, writing 3 rental contracts for 28 periods and having them sign in advance?
First of all, by writing 3 separate contracts, okay, and having them signed in advance, you can close out the current contract and just file it away, make the payment, and you're good to go. And then you just transfer over the miles and so on to the second contract and then to the third contract. The advantage to that is the rental contract, you have complete control over the car.
Okay.
If they don't pay or they're used, if you see the car going down the street with 5 bales of hay tied to the roof, okay, you can pull that car over and take the guy out of the car.
Okay.
With a lease, you can't.
Okay.
All right. You can still demand that the car get returned, but it's a whole different process.
Okay.
Until the end of the lease comes up. With a short-term lease, you have a little bit better work on it. It carries all the same legalities that a lease carries, but you could do like a 6-month lease and then pull the car.
Yeah.
And give them something different and write another lease.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason you would want to do that is especially if it's if you think they might be putting tons of miles on the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you have the ability with a short-term lease to you have all the advantages of a rental.
Mm-hmm.
What I used to do with some of the companies was I would do a rental agreement and the lease. But I kind of like just gave them a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was all in the rental. And I even tracked it in rental software, just under another location.
Okay.
Okay. What you should do, get a hold of Reynolds and Reynolds,
Mm-hmm.
Reynolds and Reynolds.
Wrote it down. Yep. Thank you.
And order a leasing agreement. And I don't think they have a short-term lease agreement, but check and see.
Okay.
But a leasing agreement, because you set the terms. And for the state that you're going to put, now you said you had that car in Colorado. So you want to get a Colorado leasing agreement.
Even if we're going to do the same thing, we're going to keep the vehicle in Texas and deliver it to Colorado.
I would get one of Texas and one of Colorado. Because after you read through the two,
yeah,
which one gives you the better protection? If it's both the same, if they're both under the same rental agreement, then just do it out of Texas. Who cares?
Yeah. And is that also, so if we're using a Colorado form, then do we have to kind of register with Colorado for sales tax, but any of the other stuff that we're
probably yes.
Okay.
Because you're going to have to, if you're going to actually write it on a Colorado form, then you got to collect Colorado tax. If you rent it out of Texas, you got to collect Texas tax. Which is in rental.
But on the lease, we avoid, because we're putting it on the customer's insurance. We don't have to make sure that we don't have to get a Colorado policy or
no.
Okay.
No. But what I would want is I would want to talk to my insurance company to get an overall umbrella.
Okay.
Okay. Get an umbrella that would protect me in case XYZ Corporation goes bust and they have a bad accident as they're trying to get out of town. Okay.
Yeah, and with that also, and we'd probably want to be covered for our employees driving the cars or delivering the cars too. Would we just keep that under a
that would be under your garage policy? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, talk to them about a garage policy.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
No problem. David.
Okay, software contract. Are we still on contract? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
rental software for
yeah, there's There's a
for-
number of rental software programs available out there. We skipped over the rental contract somewhere along the line. There's a sample of the terms and conditions. Yeah, somewhere in there, we have a sample of the rental contract from the software program. There it is. Now, there's a sample of a software rental contract. Now, there's a number of software programs out there. We like Rentware by Argo Development. It's a Texas company that provides outstanding customer support. There's another one out there called Rent Centric, which is a Canadian company. Good, solid system, support, not so good. All right. There's another one out there, TSD, very expensive, big, not terribly user-friendly. All right. Bluebird has just conglomerated with Navitar and one other to form another company. And I forgot the name of it, but they're out there. But anyhow, your software contract's going to look different. This is the way it prints. It's got all the same information, just in a different format. And on the right-hand side, no smoking, no pets, excessively dirty, cleanup fee. You can put in whatever you want. All right, when the thing is set up. And on the back, the terms and conditions is basically the same as the hard copy rental agreement.
And
Have you decided on using a software program? No?
No, we haven't decided on that yet. The contracts that we're gonna have are a little bit probably custom because of the, we're packaging in the fuel and the electricity and stuff like that. But anyways, we have now looked into software, into contract software.
the FYI, this guy right here,
Rentaware.
yeah, you can Rentware, you can rent, or you can buy access to these because they're all in the cloud today. Some of them are going to cost you $3-4 grand. His is 400 and change.
Wow. Okay.
And $79 a month. And he will custom this in the very beginning to put all the information on it that you need.
Okay.
And you buy the rental agreements on what he calls plain, or what they all call plain paper. They get these printed with the terms and conditions on one side. And you just load them into an inkjet and you print out two. Have the customer sign one, you sign one, hand them one.
Okay.
And when he comes back, you close out the contract and print two more. Here's your receipt. See you, bye. Where the cost on those are like $200 for 1,000. And depending on where you get these, where you get this bad boy, they can cost 50 cents a piece. So they, because they're multi-carbon, not carbon, what do they call them? The whatever.
Yeah.
NCR paper. There we go. I can't believe I remembered that. That's ages ago. So, and he can put anything that you want on these.
Okay.
All right. What's new? Mobile apps. David's pretty much talked about the mobile apps. You can create your own mobile app. You can create a kiosk if you wish. But your stuff is going to be done toe-to-toe, belly-to-belly, it sounds to me like. You're going to actually meet the people because you want to explain the car to them, the whole deal. So I don't think either of these are going to affect you. Right now, we are coming up on the bewitching hour in about 8 minutes. I would like to talk about marketing, but I would rather do this when we've got some more time.
That sounds great.
Okay, because there's several things that marketing can do. And it depends on how you want to market the business. And I'm sure you've got a sales force that's already out knocking on doors to do the what's the word I'm looking for? To do the infrastructure.
Yeah, we
Okay.
do. Yep.
So I would assume you're going to piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the marketing strategy that we have in here is basically on retail. Do you want me to go through that with you?
I think, why don't I look at it? I think our next session's on Friday.
Yes.
And I know you emailed me this document. Let me take that on my side. I'll look at the document between now and Friday. And why don't we say no for now? But if something, I'll read it. And if I have questions on some of this, I will ask. I'll either send an email or just ask you on Friday morning.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. We're not generally going to be doing retail marketing on this stuff.
Have you done your website yet?
We do have a website. It's not specific to rentals or leases. So that would be, we have to revise it, but we do have a website.
David, did you look at their website? I have not.
No, I have not. I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's mergefleet.com, mergefleet.com.
Okay.
And I'll warn you before going in, it's extremely vague, kind of on purpose.
No problem.
We've been working out the, business models and things like that. But this would be the domain that we would add content about, the rental package or lease package or something.
Okay. Take a look at this website. You might get some ideas from it.
Yeah, this looks great. Yeah.
Okay. Who is doing your website?
That's a great, we had a marketing firm that put the current one together. I think that was the end of their contract though. And I think we are, moving forward, we know we need to do revisions. I think we'd be looking for another company to kind of do those.
Write down Chad Frizzell, Frazell.
Okay.
And they're with the web guys. And I will send you their contact information. They're the guys that built these as a template, but they're also the guys that built our website. And if you scroll through our website, you'll see they've done a pretty good job. And if you search us on Google or any one of those guys, we pop up right after all the paid ads.
That's how I found you guys. It was, it was like the #1 hit there. So yeah, they're doing great on SEO and all that.
Yeah, they do a real good SEO program. So Chad is the sales manager and a good guy, which is kind of cool. One of the things that we do is we don't recommend anybody unless we vet them first. And because we don't want to recommend somebody that's going to hoodwink one of our customers, because it falls back on us. As a matter of fact, with the insurance product that we sell, when they don't pay a claim, because the customer broke the contract or what have you, we get a bad review. It's not us, it's an insurance product. It's the insurance company that turned it down, but we get a bad review.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, we don't get that many because we're still like 4.99999 out of 5. So I'll take it.
Hey, Jim, speaking of that, between now and Friday, we'll contact Reynolds and Reynolds on the contracts. We'd also like to get the ball rolling a little bit on the insurance side.
Yeah.
Is that something that and I think for now, I think we'll kind of go into the assumption that we're going to have some rentals and some lease.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll make a decision later to do just one or the other, but we'll try to be able to do all of them if we need to. Would you be able to help us, find or talk with an insurance company, that works with people of our size, which is 0, But small companies, small growing companies.
I will send you an insurance
Sure.
app
Okay.
and a, like a 1-page, 2-page business plan.
Okay.
They just want to know who you are, what you're gonna do. And
Okay.
it's as simple as saying, I want to rent cars in the neighborhood and I want to rent, and I want to do short-term leases.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll send that out to you. You fill it out as best you can. And then send it back to David or me.
Okay.
And then David will go through it before we send it to an insurance company to make sure that it's filled out right, and that you're not saying, like, we had one guy, we could not get him insurance. We still can't help him because he went through the training and everything with us. And the first thing he did was put up his website, and he put on, and it's under yacht brokerage. And he's got a picture of a yacht and a picture of a private airplane.
Yeah.
And a jet and we rent cars.
Yeah.
And the insurance companies are going, well, we don't want to insure jets.
Yeah.
We want to insure yachts.
Yeah.
And we asked him to change his website, and he says, oh no, I'm a broker for that stuff. Oh, okay. So
Just do a different website, sir.
yeah, we figured out. Yeah, try getting another website. So
Yeah. Okay.
The
That would be
other
great.
thing though, Malcolm, with the insurance, what you have to remember is this. We can probably get you a quote, but the quote is only good for about 15 to 30 days.
yeah,
Okay.
So if you're not within 30 days of opening, you don't want to mess with the insurance application, because if it stretches out, it just drops and you got to do it over again.
mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Well,
okay.
you've already got one car.
we've got a car, and right now it's under our corporate auto policy.
Mhm.
And we're okay. We think we're going to open after the new year. We think we'll probably be, in contracts and stuff like that until then, and be putting cars out into the market in, January, February timeframe. But I mean, we are okay with if we would rather be safe, sign up for the insurance, make sure that we have it, and pay some extra money for that, for that knowledge, then we
That it's
would.
in place.
We
Yeah.
don't want to go down the road with B2B customers and get closed and get signed contracts and then find out that we have a hiccup or something on the insurance for whatever that's worth.
And if you're gonna start putting cars on after the first of the year, that's only 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, so that might be optimistic, but that's our plan. We do have that one vehicle, and and we've got a bunch of reservations, and we're like with everybody else right now, just waiting on supply chain stuff to break loose. And
Well, then, yes,
Okay.
we'll send that out, fill it out, get it back to David. And David, we can just put in that they want to open up after the first of the year.
Yeah, we can do that. I would suggest, from what I'm seeing, if we're gonna run an application through for Texas, you're looking at about $150, $160 per car per month.
Mhm.
okay.
That's what they seem to be coming in for Texas. I don't know if there's going to be any kind of adjustment because of the electric cars.
Okay.
All right. I don't know, but
Yeah.
if there is, I wouldn't expect it to be high. You have to
It might be a
plan.
little higher, David, if we want to see if we can get them a higher deductible or a higher.
Well, that's
Vision
correct,
limit.
because typically they come in with a $25,000 limit for physical damage.
Okay.
We're gonna try to get it up to about 45 or 50. I think that's where they stop.
Okay.
All right, that might create a little higher premium, but you're gonna be right around that area.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
And now remember, they're gonna want a setup fee. And the setup fee is typically about $995.
Okay.
$995. That is not a deposit. That's a fee. I call it corporate theft, but they call it a fee. All right. I said, how can you charge that? Well, because we can. All right. So remember, there's only 4 or 5 companies in the country that do this.
Yeah.
And when you're on a startup, it knocks it down to maybe 2.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's not like there's a market out there. It's not like buying for your own insurance. It's a different animal completely.
Yep.
So you're gonna need about 1,000. They're gonna want 2 months premium per car to start up. So that's gonna be for one car, 300. So you're gonna have to plan on about $1,300 to start your insurance with one car.
I think that's absolutely fine. If we wanted to have that option of, either renting the cars or leasing the cars, would we be pursuing 2 different policies then? Or
Absolutely, yeah.
okay.
For now, all you need is the rental.
Right.
Okay.
How do I say this? We need to talk to them about what you need for leasing.
Okay.
Okay. But for now, it's just the rental. Be great.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you guys so much. I know
Okay.
we're over, but I really appreciate the discussion as always. Very, very enlightening. We're excited to move forward. We'll look to start filling out that app this week. I'll talk with Reynolds and Reynolds, and we'll see you guys on Friday.
And
Got
we
it.
will see you Friday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning in California. I'm
Perfect.
sorry. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.